most of your life, you were told that putting yourself first is selfish, that good people sacrifice, that love means endurance, that patience will save everything. But one day, you realize something terrifying. The more you disappear for others, the less anyone notices you're gone. You look around and you see it. People only value the parts of you that serve them, and suddenly, being good starts to feel like slow suicide. That's the moment everything shifts, the moment you finally whisper to yourself, I can't keep living like this. Because what if choosing yourself isn't betrayal, but the beginning of finally coming home? You know this feeling, don't you? The quiet ache of wanting permission to exist without apology. Let's talk about what really happens when you finally choose yourself. Choosing yourself sounds simple, but in reality, it's one of the hardest, most painful awakenings you'll ever live through, because it isn't about ego, it's about truth. It's the moment you stop abandoning your own soul just to keep peace. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And that's exactly what choosing yourself feels like. Not a celebration, but an unraveling. You start to see all the ways you edited yourself, how you smiled when you wanted to cry, how you agreed when you wanted to scream, how you stayed when your heart had already left. At first, it feels like betrayal. You feel guilty, self-centered, cold, because for so long, you measured your worth by how useful you were to others. But this is the quiet truth no one tells you. You can't heal in the same place you keep bleeding. When you finally choose yourself, you're not abandoning anyone. You're abandoning the version of you who never felt allowed to exist. And that's when the guilt turns into grief. Grief for every version of you who kept saying yes just to survive. But there's something else hidden underneath that grief. Something ancient, sacred. Because beneath the pain of choosing yourself lies the memory of who you were before the world taught you to shrink. And once you glimpse that forgotten self, you can't go back. Jung believed that the human journey is the process of individuation, becoming the person you were meant to be, rather than the mask the world rewards. He said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to do that, you have to meet your shadow, the part of you that hides behind politeness, productivity, and perfection. The part that whispers, I'm tired of being good all the time." You see, most people live as fragments, a collection of roles stitched together by expectations, the friend, the parent, the helper, the achiever, but deep down, they feel hollow. Because the true self, the instinctive, wild, creative self, was exiled long ago. You can feel this split in small, ordinary moments. When you say, it's fine, while your stomach knots. When you feel invisible, even in a room full of people. When you smile, but your chest feels heavy. That's the shadow calling out to you, begging to be seen, not silenced. And here's the paradox. The moment you turn toward it, the moment you stop running from your own darkness, that's when light finally begins to grow, because healing isn't about becoming more perfect, it's about becoming more whole. But before that wholeness comes recognition. Recognition of the faces that kept you from choosing yourself for so long. Let's name them one by one. Before you can truly choose yourself, you have to recognize the forces that kept you from doing it. They wear familiar faces. They sound like love, duty, or loyalty. But underneath, they feed on your silence. The first face is the pleaser. It's the one who learned early that love must be earned. You became the peacekeeper, the fixer, the one who always understands. You say, it's okay, even when it's not. You smile so others won't worry. You apologize just to keep things calm. And every time you do, you trade a piece of your authenticity for temporary safety. But here's the cost. The pleaser never truly feels loved. only needed, and that's not the same. The second face is the saver, the one who believes they can heal everyone else, the broken parent, the unstable friend, the partner who never shows up. You believe that if you just love them enough, they'll finally change. But you forget something important. When you carry everyone else's pain, you abandon your own. The saver spends their life patching up others, while their own heart quietly bleeds. And the third face is the performer, the one who survives through achievement, appearance, or perfection. You built a version of yourself the world would applaud, but applause is a cruel replacement for love. The performer shines in public, but collapses in private. Because the moment they stop performing, they fear disappearing. These are the three faces that keep you loyal to your own suffering: the pleaser, the saver, the performer. Different names, same wound. I am only worthy when I am useful. And when you live inside that belief long enough, you forget what it feels like to simply be. But what makes this more dangerous is that we learn to hide these wounds behind adult identities. And those masks are even harder to see. By the time we grow up, we've learned how to disguise our pain so well, even we start to believe the performance. The first mask is the responsible one, the one who never asks for help, never breaks down, never rests. Everyone depends on them, but no one truly sees them. They carry the world on their back and call it strength. But underneath that composure lives exhaustion so deep it feels like silence. The second mask is the invulnerable one, the person who hides behind intellect, sarcasm, or detachment. They don't cry, don't confess, don't need, because needing feels dangerous. So they stay distant, controlled, admired. But their isolation isn't peace, it's armor. And the third mask is the performer, not the ambitious kind, but the emotional one. The one who entertains, makes others laugh, keeps the energy high so no one feels discomfort. They fill every silence with noise, because in silence, their own truth starts to echo back. Each mask serves one purpose: to keep the true self hidden, the self that still aches, the self that still remembers being unseen. We wear these masks for survival, but the cost is disconnection, not just from others, but from the soul itself. Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Because when you take off the mask, even for a moment, the rawness is unbearable. But you can't heal what you won't touch. And you can't touch what you won't see. That's why the moment you finally remove the mask, you don't feel free at first. You feel naked, exposed, lost. But something miraculous begins right there. In that emptiness, that's the beginning of the healing turn. There comes a night, quiet, unremarkable, when you realize no one is coming to save you. You've begged, waited, hoped, but the apology never came. The understanding never arrived. And that's when you understand, no one can give you back the pieces you gave away. Only you can. This realization doesn't bring joy, it brings heartbreak. Because you see, at last, how much of your life was spent trying to earn what should have been unconditional. You cry, not just for the pain others caused, but for the person you became in order to survive it. That's the crack where light enters. Choosing yourself doesn't begin with empowerment. It begins with mourning. Mourning the lost childhood, the abandoned dreams, the fake smiles, the endless, "I'm fine." Then slowly, you start to rebuild. You begin to listen to the quiet voice inside that says, "I matter," even when no one else agrees. This is where the soul begins its return. Not in noise, but in stillness. Not in achievement, but in self-acceptance. And that's the miracle of individuation, the transformation that Jung spoke of. You stop living as the idea of who you should be, and start living as the truth of who you are. But awareness alone isn't enough. You have to learn how to live differently. You have to practice self-choosing daily. And that begins with small, quiet steps. Healing begins quietly. No fireworks, no applause, just small moments of truth, practiced again and again. The first step: begin with honest acknowledgement. Say to yourself, I abandoned myself because I didn't know better. No blame, no shame, just honesty. Awareness breaks the cycle. It's how you stop betraying yourself in silence. The second step: set a boundary that costs you something. Not to punish anyone, but to prove to yourself that your peace matters. It could be saying no to a familiar demand, or walking away from a conversation that drains you. It will hurt at first, because your nervous system still believes that safety equals approval. But each time you protect your energy, your body learns a new language: self-trust. The third step: reclaim the exiled parts of you, the playful one, the curious one, the one who dreamed without fear. Spend time with them. Write, paint, sit under a tree. Do something for no reason other than it feels like you. The fourth step: forgive yourself for staying too long. You did what you had to do with the awareness you had. Self-forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the act of releasing your own throat from your grip. And the fifth step: speak to yourself with tenderness. Every morning, say, I see you. I'm not leaving you this time. Then keep that promise. You don't need to fix everything today. You just need to stop abandoning yourself one moment at a time. That's how the healing becomes real, not in theory, but in daily, imperfect practice. And something beautiful happens when you stay consistent. The fragments start to remember each other. At first, choosing yourself feels like loss. You lose people, you lose comfort, you lose the version of you who kept everyone else comfortable. But after the storm comes a strange, deep peace. You wake up one morning and realize you're not anxious to please anyone. You're not rushing to explain yourself. You breathe differently. It's quiet. And in that quiet, you finally hear it, your own voice. It doesn't sound like rebellion anymore. It sounds like truth. You begin to notice beauty in ordinary things. How sunlight hits the wall, how silence no longer scares you, how solitude starts to feel like home. That's when you know the integration has begun. You're no longer chasing wholeness, you're living it. The shadow and the self, finally sitting at the same table. No masks, no performance, no pretending. Just you, raw, flawed, luminous. You've stopped fighting your darkness, and because of that, it no longer controls you. This is what it means to choose yourself, not in defiance, but in devotion. Not to prove worth, but to remember it. And from here, life begins to look different. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because you finally understand yourself. That's the quiet triumph of the soul. After the light returns, there is quiet work to do. No one tells you this, that peace requires maintenance. That even after awakening, your old patterns will visit like ghosts, knocking on the walls of your new home. They whisper, remember us? And part of you wants to let them in. Because familiarity still feels like safety. But you've changed. You don't fight them this time. You listen. You realize they're not enemies, just echoes of the selves you used to be. You make them tea. You sit together in silence. You thank them for their service. Then, one by one, they fade. Not because you banished them, but because you finally acknowledged them. That's how the psyche heals, through recognition, not rejection. You start noticing life's gentleness again, how the air feels softer when you walk slower, how your chest expands when you breathe without rushing. You rediscover rituals that feel like prayer. Watering plants, cleaning your space, writing words that no one will ever read. These are not chores, they're forms of worship. Because everything ordinary becomes sacred once you begin doing it with awareness. You find yourself drawn to nature more often, not for escape, but for conversation. Trees begin to look like teachers, their stillness, their patience, their quiet resilience after every storm. You start learning what strength really means. Not resistance, but rootedness. You start realizing that your healing was never about fixing what was broken. It was about remembering what was never destroyed. And slowly, you start building again. But this time, you build differently. Not from scarcity, from sufficiency. Not to prove, to participate. You choose people who feel like calm, not chaos. You spend time with those who listen instead of compete. You begin to understand the rare gift of reciprocity. When someone asks, "How are you?" you tell the truth, not the performance. You no longer fear being misunderstood, because your worth no longer depends on being understood. That's what inner peace is. Not the absence of noise, but the confidence that you can return to yourself even when the noise appears. At night, you write letters to the past. Some start with forgiveness. Others simply end with release. You don't send them, you burn them, and watch the smoke rise like gratitude. Because closure doesn't come from confrontation, it comes from consciousness. You understand now, healing is not a single sunrise. It's a series of dawns, each softer than the one before. And with every dawn, you meet a version of yourself that feels more like home. Then, one day, you wake up and the world feels different. Not because it changed, but because you did. You step outside, barefoot on cold ground. The sky is the same, but it looks larger, as if you finally have the eyes to see it. You sense something vast moving through you. Call it soul, call it spirit, call it life. It doesn't matter what name you give it. What matters is that it's yours. You remember Jung's words. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And for the first time, you understand what he meant. Becoming yourself isn't an achievement, it's a surrender. You surrender the masks, the borrowed beliefs, the compulsions to perform. You surrender the story that love must be earned, that peace must be deserved, that you must constantly justify your existence. And beneath all that surrender, there's simplicity. You realize that enlightenment isn't ascending somewhere higher. It's descending into the ordinary moment until it glows. You pour coffee, you feel the warmth through the cup. You say good morning to the light. You are not chasing meaning anymore. You are inhabiting it. You used to seek signs from the universe. Now you realize the universe was seeking you. You were the message it was trying to deliver all along. The birds outside aren't omens, they're reminders. Life continues. And you, finally, are part of that continuation. The boundaries between inner and outer start dissolving. You see that the same rhythm that beats in your chest moves the tides, the wind, the galaxies. You are not separate from life. You are one of its expressions. That realization doesn't inflate you, it humbles you. You stop needing to win. You stop needing to be seen. You simply exist, and that existence feels holy. You start laughing again, the real kind, from the stomach. Because after everything, the pain, the searching, the breaking, you made it here. Not as a saint, not as a savior, just as yourself. You see your reflection now, lines, scars, softness, and you think, this is enough. You realize your entire life was a love story between your consciousness and your soul. Every failure was a letter, every heartbreak, a paragraph, every healing, a chapter. And now you're reading the ending, not with tears of sadness, but of recognition. Because even in the darkest moments, something in you kept whispering, keep going, and you did. Now you understand that the true meaning of choosing yourself was never about isolation. It was about integration. When you chose yourself, you didn't abandon the world. You returned to it, whole. You can finally love others without losing your center. You can give without bleeding. You can stand alone without being lonely. That's the paradox of wholeness. You become everything by no longer needing anything. You breathe, and the breath feels complete. You exist, and existence feels like grace. You look at the horizon, not for answers, but for appreciation. Because life is not a riddle to be solved, it's a rhythm to be felt. And now, finally, you are in rhythm. The music was never outside you, it was always your heartbeat, waiting for you to listen. You close your eyes. No prayers this time, only gratitude. Because in the quiet truth of this moment, you finally understand. The journey never ends. It just deepens. And with each breath, you keep returning to the one place that was always waiting, yourself. Tell me, when was the last time you chose yourself? Truly. Not to prove something, not to rebel, but because you finally knew you were worth the peace you kept postponing. When was the last time you rested without apology, said no and didn't explain why, looked in the mirror and saw someone you didn't need to fix? We spend years waiting for permission to be real, for someone to say, "You've done enough, you can just be now." But no one can grant that but you. So take it. Take your own permission. Choosing yourself isn't loud. It's a quiet shift in how you breathe. It's a hand that used to reach out, finally resting on your own heart. It starts with a single truth. I can no longer betray my soul to keep the peace. And that sentence changes everything. At first, you'll feel guilty. Your old self will panic. It will say, what if they leave? What if they stop loving me? But the real question is, what if you stay and you stop loving you? You see, the moment you choose yourself, you break the cycle of conditional love. You stop earning your place and start belonging to your own life. Yes, some people will fall away. They were never meant to stay with this version of you. And that's okay, because what remains will be real, unshaken by your truth. Close your eyes. Imagine every past version of yourself standing around you. The child who tried too hard, the friend who gave too much, the lover who stayed too long. They're waiting for you to acknowledge them. Say it softly. I see you. I forgive you. I'm here now, and feel how they exhale, how they finally rest. That's integration. That's wholeness. You don't need to erase your past to heal. You just need to bring it home. If these words found you tonight, maybe it's because your soul is tired of waiting for proof. Maybe it's ready to be chosen. So before you scroll away, take a breath, a real one. Feel the air enter the body that's carried you through every battle. Then say quietly, I choose myself, not as a slogan, as a return. If this message touched something in you, leave a line below. Not for validation, for witnessing. Write what you wish someone had told you the day you forgot your worth, because someone will read it tonight, and your words might be the reason they remember theirs. That's how healing moves, from one honest sentence to another. And if you feel like sharing this video, do it not to spread my voice, but to spread the reminder you needed most. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to exist without earning it. Someone out there is still trying to be what the world demands. Let them hear a different story through you. Be that echo, be that quiet light in someone's night. Before this fades out, I want you to know, you'll forget again. You'll slip into old habits. You'll people please and overthink. That's okay. What matters is that you remember sooner, return faster, forgive quicker. Every time you come back to yourself, you grow roots deeper into peace. That's how healing works, not as a straight line, but as a spiral coming home. So after this video ends, sit for a minute. No music, no noise, just you. Hand on your chest, breath steady. Whisper it once more, not as a wish, but as a truth you've finally remembered. I choose myself. Let the words settle. Let them sink beneath the fear and find your heart. That's where they belong. If you're still here, you're already healing. If you're still breathing, you're already becoming. And if this message found you at the right time, don't just listen, live it. Like this video, as a promise to keep returning to yourself. Share it, as an act of kindness to a stranger you'll never meet. Subscribe, not to a channel, but to your own becoming. Your journey doesn't end here. It continues in every moment you choose presence over performance, truth over approval, and love over fear. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, because after everything you've survived, you deserve to be your own safe place. And someday, when someone asks how you became so calm, so whole, you'll smile and say, I finally chose me.